good, YouTube? It's your boy Cardiac K, and we back here with another video on the channel. Just like last week, I want to take a look at a series that I read or finished recently and analyze it or just express my thoughts on it to a deeper level. And that series this week is Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man is a series that, from the outside looking in, seems like either based upon your interactions with talking to people about the series, it could stem from the journey of a horny kid trying to touch boobs for the first time and get his first kiss, or if you are looking at just the title and the art of the series, it can look like one of the most gruesome manga that you may ever be about to pick up. And I can guarantee you that both of these statements are true at the same time. Chainsaw Man is about a character named Denji, who we meet in a very particular situation in his life where he is working to pay off a debt. And part of this debt includes taking down devils, which in this world take the form of basically monsters that embody different parts of fears or different concepts that are prevalent throughout the world. And we follow Denji as he escapes this harsh life that he's been thrust into and is put into the real world with characters like Makima. Later we meet Power, later we meet Aki, and we find we're along the ride of his journey of just becoming a human and what it means to be human and the meaning of life altogether. The series does this in its own ridiculous ways, and with the power scaling of the characters, with the ridiculousness of its situations, the world building of its society and different races and characters, and the introspections that it has on the different aspects of human life. All through the lens of this horny kid that, for all we know, has no parents, has no goals, has no wishes, and yet he's grasping on to everything that he is encountered with in his life. Real quick, shout out to River. I was on this podcast about a week ago. If you want to check that out, I have the card up above. It'll also be in the description. Go check that out if you haven't. I need to remember that not everyone who's watching these videos has read the manga that I'm talking about. So I probably need to give you guys a little bit of a pitch for y'all to join the boy and get on the manga gang, you know, because I'm starting to get my manga back. But just to give you guys a pitch, the anime will probably adapt the first 3 to 4 story arcs of the series, which include the public safety arc, which will probably show allusions to Denji's actual backstory if you've read the manga. The Bat Devil arc, which will probably expand Power's backstory and just her character in general. The Hotel Room / the Eternity Devil arc, which is an amazing arc on just a fundamental level of stakes and just pressing information and pressing circumstances for our characters, putting our characters in situations to where they have to move hastily, at least for the most part. And honestly, in my opinion, I think if they adapt it like a 2-to-1 pace or 2.5-to-1 pace, at least for the early arcs, they can probably get half of the Katana Man arc. I know it's a stretch to some people, but honestly, I can't see this anime getting adapted without at least giving us a cliffhanger for Katana Man. So if you know what any of those mean, you should be getting happy right now. And if you don't, well, let me give you something to be excited about. As I mentioned before when I was explaining the premise, we pick up Denji's life in, honestly, turmoil. He's in a place where a kid of his caliber just does not belong, even in this world in 1997 where things are different. Things are really different in this society. But the public safety arc is basically the first 5 to 6 chapters, which introduce him to the world that we'll be inhabiting for the remainder of the series. It's just the opening arc. It honestly has some amazing action, especially for like the first 5 to 6 chapters of a series. And it gives early insight to the desperation that someone like Denji feels, but also gives us a little bit of insight to a few other characters that will play a monumental part in the story. It gives us some insight to Denji's early characterization and early character interactions with characters that, like I mentioned, will be very important, but also will have a profound impact on Denji and who he is as a character throughout the entire series. In this arc, we're also introduced to Power at the end, who is arguably everyone's favorite character in this series, because Power is just great. She is a bundle of joy that will grow on you very fast. The Bat Devil arc is basically expanding Power's backstory and her personality and her relationship with Denji and also Aki's relationship with the two of them, who we meet Aki in the previous arc as well, where he is one of Denji's superiors working at the Public Safety Bureau. And through this arc we get characterization for both of our main side characters in Power and Aki, and their relationship starts to brew, which will also be one of the best driving forces for this anime in the future. Honestly, there's no way to summarize the Hotel Eternity Devil arc without getting into spoilers, and the Katana Man arc, honestly, I can't even explain it because it's just that awesome, I guess. I don't even use that word, but there's no other way for me to describe it. The action's amazing. Hopefully that's enough to sell some of you guys on it, because now we're gonna be getting into some manga spoilers, and I can't help but geek out. Spoiler warning, spoiler warning, spoiler warning, spoiler warning, spoiler warning. I want to touch a little bit more on the characters. I have a short list of characters I want to talk about. Denji, Aki, Power, Makima, Kobeni, and Angel. Y'all know, these are the main people that a lot of people talk about because they're just written so amazingly. Like I said, Power is just a bundle of everything that you want in a well-written female shonen character. Her relationship with Denji honestly is a powerful sight throughout the entirety of the series. We're introduced to her as this selfish, loathing piece of shit, and then she grows into something that we can all acknowledge the selflessness of, and just her development with the rest of the Public Safety Bureau. And of course, when her and Denji go to meet Kishibe, her development with Denji and Aki throughout those multiple arcs, and all the situations that they get put into, and just the silliness that we see them bond over, and the desperation that we see them connect through is an amazing sight to see. And it's no wonder why her character is beloved by so many, including me. Next we go into Aki, and I'm just gonna partner him up with Angel because they're mostly partnered up through the later half of the series. The thing that makes their dichotomy so amazing to me is the fact that it seems as though at every given turn, with the contracts that Aki signs and, you know, the usage of his sword and such, every time he was with another character, it felt like he was trying to learn something more, either about himself or just about the world. And part of that may have been him reaching out for things that he knew that he wouldn't be able to experience because of his shortened lifespan constantly. But specifically him and Angel's interesting philosophy to what life is and how she wants hers to end. It creates an interesting dichotomy between the two, where you have Aki, who at least to me is constantly searching for answers, and Angel, who is constantly wanting to get away from the things that she can't control, at least to me. Both of these characters have suffered through traumatic events that have changed their lives more ways than I could possibly explain or count. And even with me rereading parts of the series, viewing these two in a vacuum, trying to understand their character and even their relationship, it's hard for me, especially knowing how Aki is his own life that he sacrificed for so many, his own life that he was able to connect with in his final years with Power and even Makima. And Denji, of course, was manipulated in such a way that's just gruesome and horrible, and honestly just sickening and sad to think about again. But it goes to the beauty of the way that these characters are written, the sad reality of the world that desperate people make desperate decisions sometimes. And sometimes when people are desperate, they neglect certain things that may have been obvious, or they fall to the whim of those who attempt to control their ignorance and their desperation. And in that, we go to Makima. Now, one of my friends can attest to this. In the early goings of me reading this series, I was simping for Makima already. I fell for the trap. I don't know what to tell you. I fell for the trap, and I'm still tripping. But it's cool, because I've read the series a multitude of times, and I know the evils, and I know some of the depths of Makima's character. I know some of the controversies with how her character is finalized, and just the whole idea of the control devil itself. And it's just so interesting to me how such a compelling and manipulative person can be written in fiction. Someone with so much extensive knowledge and uses that completely to her control at a whim, at a moment's notice can manipulate and taint those around her on such a degree that it literally transforms and creates scenarios that lead to 97 chapters worth of a story. To me, Makima felt similar to the characters of old, of like Aizen, you know, the type of big bad that at the end of the series is like, oh, everything was set up for you, blah 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 blah, nothing this was your choosing. But it felt right with Makima. Not to say that, you know, she orchestrated the events of the story to that extent, of course, but with her being the control devil and looking at the lineage of things that happened and the deterioration of Denji's mental state and his later importance to the entire Chainsaw Man story and the Chainsaw Devil himself, all events line up and make place for Makima to be the control, the puppet pulling the strings, the mastermind at the end of the tunnel. And that's all Makima. From the very beginning, we can see her manipulative ways, we can see her teases, we can see her putting crumbs for us to follow, just like Denji. And time again, after arc after arc after arc, after devil after devil after devil, after training after training, after relationship strained, after assassination attempt happened, after every connection made was eventually taken away because it was controlled all along by a greater entity, that being Makima. And seeing her one by one deteriorate Denji and the characters around him, and even Kobeni, who is the lone survivor in all of this along with Denji, to a point to where it honestly breaks him. And that scene, that one panel where she just breaks Denji down to the core for the final time right before, man, it's so amazing. It's amazing the way that it's written, that through the manipulation of one's ignorant bliss, just one of the main core tenets of the story, are they easily manipulated at their darkest and deepest times that were ultimately controlled from the very beginning. I've touched on a majority, all of the characters, honestly, that I want to talk about. Through Makima and her connection with Denji, I was able to talk about them both. They will even throw in some themes there for you guys who, you know, like that kind of thing. But as I've been getting more into literature and even manga itself, of course, as that's a form of literature, even more into film and just general concepts over the past several months, I've become familiar with some terms and some ideas and concepts that I see rear their head within the Chainsaw Man manga that I wanted to point out, and their significance in the story itself. The first concept that I wanted to point out is the use of Chekhov's, I guess you could call them tools. You have Chekhov's gun, and then you have other things that represent different things within literature and just in general storytelling. One of the things that represents the idea of Chekhov's gun in the story is the Chainsaw Man drinking Power's blood before the final fight, before everything. Because throughout the story, it's an important thing to show the fact that in order for devils to function, especially the Chainsaw Devil, blood is required, and at a high rate as well. And throughout the series, we see Denji and Power sharing their blood with one another. And with this being instilled in us in many arcs, and especially before the final arc and before the final revelations of the story, seeing it used in such a way when Power, even after she's killed, she is able to, you know, speak to Ponchita and, you know, do something to help out Denji and the Chainsaw Devil in the end, is excellent use of that literary. Makima also had noted before previously that the Bureau moderates media coverage, and later the Gun Devil had been defeated by the Chainsaw Man, and thus bringing on praise for the Chainsaw Man, which, as we know, with the power system of how devils work and such, with the more praise and the more loving that you give a certain figure, yes, that figure is more cemented into the history of the world, but also the less powerful that figure becomes. As from my interpretation of the story, it seems as though the more feared idea is, hence the Gun Devil being such a prominent villain throughout the story, because of the fear and the knownness of the Gun Devil and just the concept of guns in the world in general, as guns have been banned in this version of the world. Firstly, this also helps strengthen Denji, as one of the core tenets of his character is his constant need for validation. Not necessarily a bad thing, but also he wants people to be proud of him. He wants to be recognized for the things that he does, as he's never really had that before, and he clings on to that, as we can see when any sort of person gives him any sort of validation or attention throughout the entirety of the series. Other important events of the story that broke my heart or made me cry, or just made me sit back and think like, wow, fuck, this is an amazing series, was basically the entire unveiling of the mystery of Makima, and especially once we key in on that conversation with the US president, with himself. He's basically unveiling all these things about Makima. Everything starts to click in my head while all this is happening, and that she's at the end of all of it. And also, like you guys have probably been able to tell, Aki and Power's deaths really shook me up to my core. I'm not gonna lie. Those did something to me that very few manga have been able to do, and especially in such a short period of time. But I can talk about this manga for hours, for days, for weeks, because it's that amazing, and I can't wait for it to be turned into an adaptation that will be available for the mass public. It's a shame that neither part 1 nor part 2 will be out for the mass public to be able to jump on, boost the sales up as it's ongoing, and whatever. But for what we have out of these 97 chapters, it was an amazing ride. I wish I would have been a part of it, back in 2019, 2020 when it was ongoing. But just being able to read this amazing work of art has been amazing. I can't wait to see what it comes back with on Jump Plus, because I know that series will solely lead to a boost of sales, a boost of users for Jump Plus that they have not seen before, and one of those will be including me. Chainsaw Man is an amazing series. It's a very deep and complex series that I can only attempt to understand with this video. And I genuinely hope that anyone watching this video, whether you've read the series once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, etc., or you have no idea what I'm talking about, gives this series a try for yourself. I can't wait to see what else Fujimoto has in store for us Chainsaw Man fans. I hope that y'all have a good day. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe if you're new, if you're old. And I'll catch y'all later. Peace.